Hey y'all, this is Joseph Prano here for another Action X movie review. I'm doing a solo one. I'm also doing an audio one because I do not have no one saw How to Train Your Dragon the Hidden World with me. Plus, it's not ready yet. We're not ready to showcase the new styles of recording that we are cooking up right now. I'm waiting for George to come and help me pick it up. But yeah, so I'm just doing this audio based. I didn't feel like putting on the camera, making myself look presentable, because I'm not today. I really am not. But the point of this video is that this is the How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World review, and honestly, of course, we're gonna start spoiler free here. This was by far, I believe, the best How to Train Your Dragon movie yet. In fact, one of the best movies I've ever seen. This movie encapsulated so much of what it needed to be as its own standalone film, as well as the ending to this trilogy of films that started back in 2010's How to Train Your Dragon 1, and we've come a long way. A near decade of a journey of Hiccup and Toothless that concluded, at least for me today. I know people in New Zealand saw the movie back in January, lucky bastards, and there was an exclusive Fandango showing earlier this month that I was unable to attend. And now finally I went to go see the movie today, and oh my god, so beautiful. Overall, what do I think of the story? The story was by far what it needed to be. It concluded the journey. It didn't have a big time jump as what 1 to 2 did. 2 to 3, I think it was just only a year, which, looking at the footage, I knew it wasn't going to be the biggest time jump, but I definitely knew there was going to be a time jump. And it definitely showcased as to kick off the story, obviously. They did something a little bit different with the opening. I think the first... this is kind of horrible for me because I just watched the last two movies 2 nights ago, back to back, and I should remember, but no, they didn't... well, no, actually, no, wait, that's spoilers, never mind. I love the characters, where they ended up. Obviously, since this is an ending story, this is meant to conclude the story. So a lot I have to say are spoilers, so I'm trying to... carefully tiptoe around around that and talk about the non-spoiler stuff. I really did enjoy the characters again. The core cast, obviously Hiccup and Toothless, by far the best part of the movie, and where their journey began and then where it ended in the film. There was definitely a sense of character development between them. In fact, for majority of the characters we've seen, actually, to be completely honest, the latter group, they were just morally there for comedic support. And that's fine. That's fine. You need to have some sort of comedic relief when this isn't the most serious, darkest story yet. I don't think any of the three were. They got dark at certain moments, but never got like super dark. But even for the little, like, the dark moments we got, we definitely need some comedy relief, and those characters were by far they served their purpose. As for the new people from How to Train Your Dragon 2, to be completely honest, and this isn't a spoiler, I don't think they were used very well. They just mainly were there just to showcase the plot, or just to develop the plot, or just to be part of someone else's growth as a character. And not to say those characters, Valka and Aaron, were not important to the story. It's just overall they just weren't. They were just there, and that isn't a spoiler really. Well, it kind of is, but it's more like those characters that we saw in 2 that had great moments in 2. They certainly had some cool moments here in 3, but it never really took off in my opinion for those characters. And also, this isn't a spoiler. This was confirmed before the movie came out. I was a bit disappointed because when I saw How to Train Your Dragon 2 in 2014, and then a couple nights ago, I remembered the villain Drago from 2. Such a great character. The actor did such a phenomenal job, and I did remember in interviews that he was going to have a huge role in 3, and then they had to supposedly cut out his scenes because the planned direction for his character, they didn't have enough time in the film itself, and that kind of made sense. The movie mainly was Hiccup and Toothless' like their final development, their final leg in their journey. Well, actually, the 6-year journey. No, it's 7-year journey. I don't know how much time has in the world, even though, again, I just watched them recently, so I'm sorry if I don't remember. Overall, just to kind of wrap up the non-spoiler section, and I'm sorry for not pacing this well. I usually have some back and forth here, but yeah, okay. But overall, this movie, by far, despite the minor points of criticism I'm making, obviously, is the best How to Train Your Dragon movie yet. One of the best animated films I've ever seen. It was such a beautiful, poignant story, and it has joined the film, because in my life there's only, I cry. People cry all the time. But there was only a certain amount of media properties that made me cry, which was Toy Story 3, the ending, and The Walking Dead Season 7 premiere, for obvious reasons. I won't spoil that. And this joined the club. The ending did join the club, and that will be my segue into this. So if you haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, now keep in mind, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, is it can you see it by itself without seeing the first two movies? I honestly don't think so. I mean, I do think you could go into Hidden World because there were kids there. I don't think these kids were even around to see two, let alone one. So, did they see those movies before? I don't know. I didn't ask them, nor did I even care to ask them. But for me, it would, since this is an ending, this is definitely the capper to the trilogy. I would definitely recommend seeing 1, 2, and then going and seeing Hidden World. Because honestly, that is just what I believe in. I believe you should see this movie, complete the whole story. I feel like it's an enjoyable movie by itself, but I don't think it's necessarily, it stands on its own, but the message I'm trying to say is I prefer you watching the whole trilogy, well, watching the last two movies before you see this one. That's my recommendation. Overall, this movie is amazing. Definitely go see it if you have seen the last two movies, and if you are curious, I think the first two are, I don't know where the first two are on streaming services. They're out there somewhere. I'm not I'm not really sure. I should have really done some research before I turn on this microphone, but that's the way it works. Anyway, now we're entering the spoiler section. I'm just gonna say that, like I said before a few minutes ago, the ending was beautiful. Like, here's the thing, like, if you don't know, How to Train Your Dragon was based on, the movie series was based on books by Cassandra Coswell. I think that's her name. I could be butchering that again. She wrote the series of books, and the first line of the first book was, well, one of the first lines was that when I was a boy, there were dragons. And the director, the creative team knew, like, at the end of 3, that's where it's gonna end. Like, the dragons are not around when things eventually get older. They're not around anymore. And especially when the first movie came out, like, that was definitely the ending. Like, how are dragons going to disappear from the face of the earth? And honestly, when I was going into 2 to 3 in the 5-year waiting period, I definitely did notice that. Was it going to be a death? Was it just going to be some pathogen, some airborne virus that, similar to, I think, Supergirl at the end of season 2 did, where dragons cannot survive in the environment anymore if they have to go away or they die. That would have been a very dark ending. And the more I realized, like, I don't think DreamWorks was going to go in that direction either way. But in terms of for this movie, I definitely knew by the end of it, Toothless wasn't going to be around anymore. The new dragon, all the other dragons we've seen before in the last two movies, they weren't going to be around anymore. And that was honestly the curiosity for me. Like, how do they say goodbye? What is the reason they led to? And personally, with the inclusion of the Hidden World, which, despite it being the subtitle, we don't get to see that much of the Hidden World. We see it for like maybe a total of 5 to 7 minutes, and it's a goddamn beautiful place. But the necessity, the purpose of the Hidden World is mainly for dragons. Like, even when audience got to see the Hidden World for the first time, there was never a sense of, I always looked around like, well, how would they colonize this place? How would they live here? Because it would seem difficult, considering the fact not only is this in a very secluded area of the ocean with no forests around, so they can't even use wood to build anything. There are no sorts of materials to kind of construct anything. Plus, I think the only way to get around this place is by flying, which, if they were going to build everyone the flying suits, I think that would be redundant to a certain point. And generally, like, I knew, like, okay, there was absolutely no freaking way these people are going to colonize this place. Plus, especially a little bit later on, we get to see, like, these dragons they don't like people living there. It's just them. And that made sense. And obviously, once those seats started to sit, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. And even there was a moment by the end of the film, before the climax, where there was a moment like, hey, we don't have to say goodbye. The wife, the Light Fury, Toothless's love interest, so to speak. She showed up with the others, and it was like, oh, maybe this could be like an ending for everyone to enjoy. But it was like, no, that wasn't going to be the case. But to go back to the ending was so powerful, where we knew like that, yeah, they have to say goodbye. There's no other choice. They have to go. And honestly, I did tear like the moment it began when they had the second to last embrace, the moment like, yeah, you gotta go, and then seeing the other dragons get prepared to be sent off, it was like, god damn, like these people, like, no offense to the people, like they uprooted their lives, their original home, for the sake of like still living with their dragons, and then by the end of the movie, like, no, we gotta give them up. That was so poignant. I'm sorry, I butchered that word. It was such a beautiful, well executed scene where it was like, damn, like if I was in that scenario, I would have been like, this is the way it has to be. Like, everyone deserves their own form of happiness, and I guess that was one of the messages. Like, everyone has to do what they have to do to be happy. And yeah, I'll get more into the epilogue, as I like to call it, later. It's not really an epilogue. It's more like a fast forward. But to kind of retread to some of the characters I kind of mixed over. The new villain in this, I forgot his name. Goddamn, I mean, he's not forgettable, but it's just, I just don't remember the name. I honestly, compared to Drago, he was more of the mental. Obviously, he's a hunter. He was the reason why the Night Furies went nearly extinct. And, you know, having him sort of come back to the forefront was, well, in terms of in the movies, obviously, this was his debut, his introduction. But in terms of, like, the whole mythos, the whole established universe, like, this is his reemergence. And he played more of a mental. He was actually the more cunning, more smarter villain. And when I say villain compared to Drago, which was like, he was the physically imposing victim. No, not victim, enemy. This one was more of a mental mind games. And honestly, he did have a very well thought out plan. And his reasonings does make sense. He was definitely a polar opposite to Hiccup at the end of it. But honestly, if I have to compare him, if I have to really like who's better, him or Drago, I feel like he went a little, like, obviously Drago indirectly led to the death of Stoic. Spoilers for How to Train Your Dragon 2. But this is the spoiler section, so you should be aware of that. Here, he did not give a fuck. Like, I'm pretty sure that had he gone forward with his plans, I feel like he would have killed them all. And I think that was his intention. And thankfully, that didn't happen. And I was like, for a moment, like, would he actually succeed in his plan? But thankfully, he didn't. And is he dead? You know, because, you know, he's dead. He's dead. I mean, you know, he's dead, thankfully. So he doesn't have to haunt anymore. People get trying to think what other things I could talk about spoiler wise. I did notice that the character Roughnut, his voice actor changed. I definitely, because obviously with the TJ Miller controversy that happened last year, I guess they recast him last minute with a new actor, and the new actor he did seem fine. I did definitely notice this isn't TJ Miller, definitely not at all. So that's what I noticed. And honestly, those characters, the Jonah Hill, Snot Loud, Fishleg, Roughnut, Toughnut, I felt they all served their purpose in the movie. Obviously, they were just there for comedic relief. In fact, throughout this entire story, like, they just mainly been there for comedic relief. I'm sure they've grown a little bit. I think the TV shows that they made in between these movies, they did definitely help out, flesh out the characters more. But when it comes to the movies, like, this was mainly Toothless and Hiccup's journey, so there wasn't really enough time to spread the entirety of the development there. Also, I did sense a little bit of, like, what's his character's name? God damn, I'm a very horrible person when it comes to remembering people's names. Frack, why do I keep forgetting the guy's name? The guy, the peg leg guy with the false hand. I forgot his name. For the life of me, I should know it on top of my head. But no, he was crushing on Aaron, the Kit Harington character. Honestly, did they ever get together? You know what? It's the Viking time. You know, the age doesn't matter supposedly in Viking time. I don't know why, because I don't know. The Valka character, i.e., Kate Blanchett's character, definitely had her high moments in 2. Here, she was mainly served as a helping out Hiccup complete his journey, pushing towards her son to marry this girl who obviously they were going to get married, and that's another running joke throughout the entire movie was that they're at the age to get married, because remember, I think humans, like, I don't know why, like, it's weird, like, sometimes people die younger, sometimes people somehow live forever, live a little longer than usual. They were definitely, like, everyone was, like, shipping them hardcore to get married, and they weren't even ready, which, come to think of it, in the time jump, it wasn't that big of a time jump, to be fair. I really don't know, logistics or whatever, but that was a funny, running gag throughout the thing. I really did like the Light Fury dragon character to an extent. Obviously, she was there to kind of push Toothless into his final stage to his journey, but given that she was only just in this movie for the sake of being in this movie, obviously, she did have a character journey. Like, she was very, very scared of Hiccup when we first saw her, and then going to the end of it was like, oh no, she can trust this person, she can trust him. And obviously that was such a big turning point, and it was such a big moment when during the final battle, Hiccup literally was about to die. He could have freaking died had it not been for her last minute's rescue. And damn. And also, now that I'm thinking about it, the moment where him and the villain were falling to the sky after Hiccup instructed the Light Fury to go save Toothless. When we saw this, when I saw the villain pulling apart his suit, not only was it a moment of desperation, like, if I'm dying, you're dying with me. It wasn't just that. It was also a moment where, like, this was the moment where Hiccup also externally knew, like, you don't need your dragons. You won't have your dragons anymore. You'll just be Vikings again. And that was honestly a very well thought out moment that I really enjoyed. Now I think I talked about everything on the top of my head that I could talk about for majority of the movie. Okay, so now going to the ending. The ending was like, it fulfilled the crying I had before was now filled with happiness. Where it's like they had their reunion after, I'm gonna say less than a decade, a little bit of a decade later. You know, Hiccup Hiccup and Astrid had kids. They had a boy and a girl, and Toothless and the Light Fury, they had kids, they had babies as well. So it's like, this was such a, and then the brief moment where, like, he didn't remember him for a second because, like, A, it's been so long, and B, he grew out that beard, so it was like, probably he doesn't remember anything, or he probably doesn't remember his face with the beard. And getting to see them, like, it reminds me of, like, when you see someone after so many years, and, you know, that moment of happiness was like, oh my god, we're together again, you're here, it's been so long, there's so much to catch up on. It was like, that could have kickstarted a second round of crying for me, but I was just smiling the whole time because, like, you know, because the last thing was that the reason, according in this world's myth, and it could still be true in our world, like, the reasons why dragons went away was that they knew, like, they could never live peacefully with humankind, at least at that point of the timeline, and hopefully one day, you know, and at least in their world, they'll be able to live together. And by that time, it's not now. Well, who knows? Maybe we'll get a 4. Actually, never mind. We will never probably get a 4 because the director already confirmed it's just a trilogy. Which, honestly, it's one of those moments where, like, I would have loved to see more of their adventures. I would have loved to see the kids and the babies, you know, become bonded. But it was like, at the end of the day, this was the end of the journey. And honestly, this was by far a perfect conclusion to the story. And now thinking about it, I'm tearing up a little bit. Overall, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World was such a great movie, such a near perfect movie, and the animation by far the best we've ever gotten. One of the best anime movies I've ever seen, period. And the story this movie tried to tell, and as well as tying into the trilogy, fit perfectly. And honestly, I cannot wait to see this movie again when I get it on DVD. But until that moment comes, I give my rating of this. Go see this movie. if you can, if you've seen if you've seen the last 2 movies, you definitely got to see 3. If you are debating, see the first 2 movies, and then you're going to enjoy this one a whole lot better. And yeah, if How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, definitely a worthwhile treat. And that's my review on it, guys. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Like this video, share the review, and follow us on Twitter just to keep up to date what we're up to next. And we'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.